Admiral Kyle Morrison sat in his office on Mars Station 7, drinking his third cup of coffee that morning. The year was 2847, and he had been managing the outer defense grid for nearly 15 years. It was usually boring work. Most days involved checking supply routes and approving maintenance schedules. Today was different. His communication panel lit up with an incoming message marked as Priority 1. Kyle set down his coffee and opened the transmission. A tall alien figure appeared on his screen. The creature had blue skin, 4 arms, and wore elaborate armor covered in metals. "I am Ambassador Drex of the Valorian Empire," the alien announced. His voice was deep and commanding. "I speak for Supreme Commander Thexnar, ruler of 4,000 star systems and conqueror of 200 species." Kyle leaned back in his chair. "Good morning, Ambassador. How can I help you?" The ambassador's eyes narrowed. "You will listen to our declaration. The Valorian Empire has decided that humanity has expanded too far into space. You have built colonies in systems that belong to us. This is unacceptable." Kyle pulled up a star map on his secondary screen. Humans had been expanding slowly for 600 years, but they had always checked to make sure systems were unclaimed. "Ambassador, we've surveyed all our colony systems. None of them showed signs of ownership or habitation." "Silence," Drex shouted. The ambassador's 4 arms gestured dramatically. "The entire region of space you occupy falls within our historical territory. We do not care if you found it empty." "It belongs to the Valorian Empire," Kyle sighed. He had dealt with territorial disputes before, but this one seemed particularly unreasonable. "What, exactly, are you proposing?" "This is not a proposal. This is an ultimatum." Drex's image grew larger on the screen. "You will abandon all human colonies beyond your home system of Sol. You have 30 standard days to comply. If you refuse, the full might of the Valorian Empire will destroy every human settlement in space." "That seems excessive," Kyle said calmly. "Perhaps we could negotiate some kind of agreement." The ambassador laughed. It was not a friendly sound. "There is nothing to negotiate. We command 50,000 warships. We have conquered civilizations far stronger than yours. Humanity is nothing but insects who have wandered too far from their nest." "I see." Kyle made notes on his tablet. "And you're formally declaring war? If we don't leave?" "We are declaring war regardless," Drex corrected. "Your surrender will simply determine whether any humans survive it. Supreme Commander Thexnar wishes to make an example of your species. You will show the galaxy what happens when lesser races forget their place." Kyle glanced at the clock. He had a meeting with the logistics team in 20 minutes. "All right, I'll forward your declaration to Earth Command. Is there anything else?" Drex seemed surprised by Kyle's casual response. "You do not seem concerned, human. Should I be? We will reduce your colonies to ash. Our fleet will blot out the stars." "Noted." Kyle saved the recording. "Have a good day, Ambassador." He closed the transmission before Drex could respond. Then, he forwarded the entire conversation to Fleet Commander Lisa Hayes at Earth Central Command with a brief note. "Got a declaration of war. Thought you should know." Then, 2 hours later, Kyle received a response from Lisa. Her message was short. "Schedule it during the training exercises next month. Assign it to Jack Bennett. He's been complaining about not having enough realistic scenarios for the new recruits." Kyle read the message twice to make sure he understood correctly. Then he smiled and sent a confirmation. The news about the Valorian Declaration reached the Galactic News Network within hours. Reporters from a dozen species began broadcasting urgent updates about the impending war. They expected panic from humanity. They expected emergency meetings and desperate diplomatic efforts. Instead, they found something completely different. On Earth, the stock markets remained stable. People went to work as usual. Children attended school. The biggest news story on human networks was about a championship soccer match scheduled for the following week. One human news anchor interviewed about the declaration simply shrugged. I guess we'll have to reschedule the regional finals if this war thing interferes with stadium availability. Alien reporters couldn't understand it. How could humanity be so calm? The Valorian Empire had destroyed entire civilizations. Their fleet was legendary across the galaxy. Captain Jack Bennett received his new assignment while eating lunch in the officers' mess on Europa base. He was a mid-level officer who normally ran training simulations for new pilots. His job was important but rarely exciting. He read through the mission briefing on his tablet, chewing thoughtfully on a sandwich. The Valorian Empire was declaring war. Earth Command wanted him to handle it as part of the annual training exercises. Lieutenant Ben Carter, his tactical officer, sat down across from him. "What's got you so focused, sir?" Jack turned the tablet around so Ben could read it. "We're apparently going to war." Ben's eyes widened. "War? With who?" "Some empire that controls 4,000 systems. They have 50,000 warships." Jack took another bite of his sandwich. "Command wants us to use it as a training scenario." "For training?" Ben looked confused. "Sir, shouldn't we be mobilizing the main fleet?" Jack checked the authorization codes on the orders. They were legitimate. Command doesn't seem too worried about it. They're giving me 50 ships from the decommission yard. All training vessels. 50 ships against 50,000? Ben's voice rose slightly. "That seems a bit unbalanced. I'm sure it'll be fine." Jack finished his sandwich and stood up. "Come on, let's go review what we're working with." They walked to the command center where Jack pulled up the inventory of available ships. The 50 vessels assigned to them were all at least 100 years old. Most were frigates and light cruisers that had been used for training exercises for decades. Ben studied the list with growing concern. "Sir, these ships are ancient. Half of them still have manual override systems. Perfect for training," Jack said. "New recruits need to learn the basics before they get assigned to modern vessels." "But sir, this is an actual war declaration." Jack looked at his young officer. Ben had graduated from the academy only 2 years ago. He didn't have access to the classified information that Jack had reviewed during his command training. "Ben, let me ask you something. What do you know about Earth's actual military capacity?" Ben recited from memory. "The public records show we have about 5,000 active warships defending our territory, with another 10,000 in reserve." "Public records," Jack emphasized. "What if I told you those numbers were significantly lower than reality?" "How much lower?" Jack pulled up a classified file on his secure terminal. He entered his authorization codes and showed Ben the real numbers. Ben's face went pale. "That's impossible," Ben whispered. "It's very possible. It's also very classified." Jack closed the file. "Humanity has been preparing for a long time, Ben. We've been preparing for threats that make this Valorian Empire look like children playing with toys. Then why don't we just tell them? Show them our real strength?" Jack shook his head. "Because that would scare every other species in the galaxy. Right now, most aliens think we're a minor civilization that got lucky with some good technology. If they knew the truth, they'd either panic or they'd unite against us out of fear. So, we're going to fight a war with training ships and new recruits? We're going to handle a minor territorial dispute with appropriate force," Jack corrected. "Think of it as a learning experience for everyone involved. The Valorians will learn not to underestimate species they don't understand. Our recruits will get valuable combat experience, and the rest of the galaxy will see that humanity can defend itself without having to show all our cards." Ben still looked uncertain. "What if something goes wrong?" Jack smiled. "Then we'll call in the real military. But I don't think we'll need to." "Why?" Vings sighed. Why? Over the next 2 weeks, Jack assembled his task force. He selected 50 of the newest academy graduates to command the old training vessels. Most of them were excited to finally see real action, even if they didn't fully understand the situation. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was one of them. She had graduated at the top of her class 3 months ago and had been hoping for an assignment with more responsibility than running simulation drills. When she received orders to take command of the frigate Horizon Runner, she could barely contain her excitement. The Horizon Runner was 200 years old. Its armor plating showed signs of countless practice battles. The weapon systems were outdated by current standards. But to Kate, it was beautiful. She stood on the bridge, looking at the crew stations around her. Her tactical officer was fresh from the academy. Her engineering team had a combined experience of less than 5 years. They were all young, eager, and completely unprepared for what was coming. But that was the point of training, Kate reminded herself. You learned by doing. Jack's task force assembled near the outer colonies, in a system called New Austin. It was a farming colony, with about 50,000 human settlers. The Valorians had specifically mentioned it in their declaration as one of the territories they intended to reclaim. Jack established his command ship, the training carrier Swift Victory, at the edge of the system. He broadcasted a simple message to any Valorian ships in the area. This system is under Earth protection. Please depart peacefully. He didn't expect them to listen. But it was polite to ask. The Valorian fleet arrived 3 days later. They came out of faster-than-light travel, in a formation that was meant to intimidate. 5,000 warships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Their hulls gleamed with polished metal and energy shields that glowed with purple light. Kate Sullivan watched from the bridge of the Horizon Runner as the enemy fleet took position. She had never seen so many ships in one place. Each Valorian dreadnought was 10 times the size of her small frigate. Their weapons ports bristled with cannons and missile tubes. "Ma'am, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the lead ships," her tactical officer reported. His name was Danny Price, and his voice shook slightly as he spoke. "They're powering up weapons." Kate kept her voice steady. "Maintain position. Wait for orders from Captain Bennett." Clued. On the Swift Victory, Jack Bennett studied the Valorian formation with interest. It was impressive from a visual standpoint, but tactically, it had several obvious weaknesses. The ships were clustered too closely together. A single, well-placed shot could damage multiple vessels. Not that he planned to fire first. The communication panel lit up. A Valorian officer appeared on screen. This one had red skin instead of blue, and wore even more elaborate armor than the ambassador. "I am Fleet Commander Zarthok, of the Valorian Empire. You have ignored our ultimatum. Your presence here is an act of war." Jack nodded politely. "Good afternoon, Commander. I'm Captain Jack Bennett, Earth Defense Training Corps. I'd like to respectfully ask you to leave this system." Zarthok's face twisted with anger. "You dare speak to me with such disrespect? I command 5,000 warships. You have barely 50 obsolete vessels. 50 is usually enough," Jack said calmly. "You humans are even more foolish than we believed." Zarthok gestured with one of his 4 arms. "This is your final chance. Surrender now or be destroyed." Jack glanced at his tactical display. The Valorian ships were now in optimal firing positions. Their weapons were fully charged. According to standard military doctrine, he should be terrified right now. "I'm sorry, Commander, but we can't surrender. This system has human civilians who depend on our protection. Then you will die protecting them." Zarthok raised his hand. "Fire warning shot. Show them our power." One of the massive Valorian dreadnoughts fired a single shot from its main cannon. The energy beam was bright enough to light up the darkness of space. It crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds and struck the Horizon Runner directly. Kate's ship shook slightly. Warning lights flickered on her console, then went dark. The shields had absorbed the impact completely. "Damage report," Kate called out. Her engineering officer checked his screens. "No damage, ma'am. Shields are at 99.8%. That hit barely registered." Kate frowned. "Are you sure the sensors are working correctly?" "Positive, ma'am. The enemy weapon was powerful, but our shields are rated for much higher impacts." On the Valorian flagship, Zarthok stared at his own sensors in confusion. Why is that ship still intact? That was a full-power shot from our best dreadnought. His tactical officer looked equally puzzled. Sir, the human vessel's shields appear to be far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. The energy readings indicate a defensive capability we've never encountered before. Impossible. These are supposed to be primitive vessels. Zarthok slammed his fist on the armrest of his command chair. All ships, open fire, destroy them all. The Valorian fleet unleashed everything they had. 5,000 warships firing simultaneously created a light show that could be seen from the surface of New Austin. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic missiles filled the space between the two fleets. The human ships sat calmly in their positions and took the hits. Their shields flared as they absorbed the incoming fire. Not a single human vessel was damaged. Jack watched the tactical display as thousands of weapons struck his small fleet. The shields on each ship were holding at above 95%. Some of the older training vessels had shields that fluctuated down to 90% before recharging. Sir, should we return fire? Ben Carter asked. Jack thought about it. This was supposed to be a training exercise. His new captains needed to learn proper combat procedures. All ships. You are authorized to use defensive fire only. Training weapons at 5% power. Focus on disabling enemy vessels, not destroying them. Ben looked at him with surprise. 5%, sir. That's what we use for target practice. I know. But these ships weren't built to withstand even our training weapons. Jack opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Bennett. You are cleared to engage. Remember your training. Aim for weapons and engines. Try not to cause casualties if possible. Kate Sullivan received the order and felt a rush of adrenaline. Her first real combat engagement. She had trained for this moment for years. Tactical. Lock onto the nearest Valorian cruiser. Target their main weapons array. Danny worked quickly at his console. Target locked, ma'am. Fire when ready. The Horizon runner fired a single shot from its forward cannon. The weapon was 200 years old and set to 5% power. The beam crossed the distance and struck the Valorian cruiser. The enemy ship exploded instantly. Pieces of debris scattered in all directions. Kate stared in shock. What just happened? Her tactical officer checked his readings 3 times. Ma'am, our shot went completely through their shields, their armor, and hit their reactor core. The ship suffered a catastrophic containment failure. But we were at 5% power. I know, ma'am. Across the battlefield, the other human ships were having similar experiences. Each shot they fired tore through Valorian vessels, like paper. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles against other species were being destroyed by ancient human training weapons set to minimal power. Jack Bennett watched the carnage with a feeling of disappointment. He had hoped the Valorians would be more durable. This was barely enough challenge for his trainees. Within 20 minutes, 3,000 Valorian ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining vessels began to retreat in panic. Their formation fell apart as captains made independent decisions to flee. Jack opened a channel to the Valorian flagship. Commander Zarthok, I'm ordering a ceasefire. Please, withdraw your remaining forces. Zarthok appeared on screen. His face showed complete disbelief. What are you? What kind of weapons do you possess? Wote. These are training weapons, Commander. Our actual military uses much more advanced systems. Jack tried to sound sympathetic. I don't want to destroy more of your ships. Please leave peacefully. Training weapons? Zarthok's voice was barely a whisper. You destroyed 3,000 warships with training weapons? Unfortunately, yes. I apologize for the loss of life. We were ordered to use minimal force. The Valorian commander closed the channel without responding. His remaining ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the void. Jack turned to Ben. Well, that was disappointing. I was hoping they'd last longer. The recruits barely got any practice. Ben was looking at the tactical display with an expression of disbelief. Sir, we just defeated 5,000 warships with 50 training vessels. This is incredible. It's embarrassing, Jack corrected. We have to write reports about this. Command is going to ask why the engagement was so one-sided. Kate Sullivan was having a similar conversation on her bridge. Her crew couldn't believe how easily they had won. Ma'am, I don't understand, Danny said. Why were their ships so weak? Kate had been asking herself the same question. Then she remembered something from her academy classes. A lecture about technological development and civilization levels. Danny, what do you know about the Kardashev scale? It's a way of measuring how advanced a civilization is based on energy use, Danny replied. Type 1 controls their planet's energy. Type 2 controls their star's energy. Type 3 controls their galaxy's energy. Right. And what level is humanity? Danny thought about it. The public information says we're transitioning from Type 2 to Type 3. Kate smiled. And what level do you think the Valorian Empire is? Understanding dawned on Danny's face. They're Type 2. Maybe early Type 2. Exactly. We just fought a battle between a civilization that's learning to harness galaxies and a civilization that's still learning to harness star systems. The technology gap is enormous. Oftenest, well, back on the Valorian homeworld, Supreme Commander Thexnar received the reports from the battle. He read them 3 times. Certain there must be an error, his second-in-command stood nervously nearby. Sir, Fleet Commander Zarthok has provided detailed sensor logs. The reports are accurate. Thexnar threw the report across the room. Accurate? You're telling me that 50 human training vessels destroyed 3,000 of our best warships? Yes, sir. That's impossible. The sensor logs don't lie, sir. The humans possess technology far beyond our understanding. Their shields are impenetrable. Their weapons are devastating. And according to Zarthok, they weren't even using their military-grade equipment. Thexnar paced back and forth in his command chamber. His forearms gestured wildly as he tried to process the information. What about the Starbreaker? The weapon from the ancient archives? His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, if their training weapons are this powerful, their actual military might be beyond our ability to fight. Perhaps we should consider peace negotiations. Peace? Thexnar's eyes blazed with fury. I will not negotiate with insects. Activate the Starbreaker project immediately. If we cannot defeat them in battle, we will destroy their home star. Let's see how well their shields protect them from a supernova. Sir, that's genocide. The Galactic Council will never forgive such an action. The Galactic Council will bow before us once we've eliminated the human threat. Thexnar grabbed his second-in-command by the shoulder. Send orders to all fleets. We mobilize everything. Every ship, every weapon, every ally we have. Humanity will burn. Far away, on Mars Station 7, Admiral Kyle Morrison was writing his daily report when the news about the battle reached him. He read the summary, noted the casualty numbers, and checked the status of Jack Bennett's task force. 0 human casualties. All 50 training vessels returned undamaged. Enemy fleet destroyed or routed. Kyle added a single line to his report. Situation handled appropriately. Then he went back to reviewing supply routes. It had been a more interesting day than usual. But there was still regular work to do. The news of the Valorian defeat spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Galactic Council held an emergency session within hours. Representatives from 40 different species gathered in the council chamber on the neutral world of Concordia. Ambassador Chen Wei arrived late to the meeting. She was humanity's representative to the council, a position that had been mostly ceremonial. Until now, for 15 years, she had attended routine meetings about trade regulations and border disputes. Today was different. The council chamber was in chaos when she entered. Representatives were shouting at each other in a dozen different languages. The translator system struggled to keep up with all the overlapping voices. Council Chairman Velthar, an elderly member of the Craxi species, slammed his staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber, demanding silence. Order! We will have order. Velthar's three eyes focused on Chen Wei as she took her seat. Ambassador Wei, perhaps you can explain what just happened at New Austin. Chen Wei activated her console and pulled up the official report from Earth Command. The Valorian Empire declared war on humanity and attacked one of our colony systems. We defended ourselves. You didn't defend yourselves, interrupted Ambassador Krell, a massive creature covered in scales. You annihilated 3,000 warships with 50 training vessels. That's not defense. That's a demonstration of overwhelming power. We used minimal force, Chen Wei replied calmly. Captain Bennett was specifically ordered to avoid casualties when possible. He disabled enemy ships rather than destroying them whenever he could. Minimal force? Another ambassador stood up, her wings fluttering with agitation. My species has been trying to develop shield technology half as effective as yours for 200 years. You're telling us that your training ships have shields that can withstand sustained fire from thousands of warships? Chen Wei chose her words carefully. Humanity has been very focused on defensive technology. We believe strong defenses prevent conflicts better than strong weapons. That's a lie, Krell growled. Your weapons destroyed Valorian dreadnoughts with single shots. At 5% power. What happens when you use full power? We'd prefer not to find out, Chen Wei said honestly. Velthar raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Wei, the Council needs to know the truth. How powerful is humanity's military? How many ships do you actually have? Ambassador Wei, the sensibility, and possibly, Chen Wei had been dreading this question. She had argued with Earth's president for days about what she should reveal. In the end, they had decided that honesty would cause less panic than speculation. The public numbers we've released show 5,000 active warships with 10,000 in reserve. She paused. Those numbers are not accurate. The chamber erupted again. Species that had considered humanity a minor power were now recalculating their entire understanding of galactic politics. What are the real numbers? Velthar demanded. I'm not authorized to reveal exact figures. But I can tell you that our reserve fleet is significantly larger than 15,000 ships. Chen Wei met the chairman's gaze. Significantly larger. Krell's voice cut through the noise. How long have you been lying to the Council? We haven't lied. We've simply not volunteered information that wasn't requested. Chen Wei stood up, addressing the entire chamber. Humanity has no interest in conquest. We don't want to control other species or expand our territory. We built our military for defense, not aggression. Defense against what? A small ambassador squeaked from the back row. Chen Wei hesitated. This was the part Earth's government had been most reluctant to discuss. We've detected signals from outside the galaxy, evidence of civilizations that went silent long ago. We believe there may be threats from beyond our galaxy that make our current conflicts seem trivial. The chamber fell silent. For many species, the idea of threats from outside the Milky Way was almost incomprehensible. You're preparing for war with another galaxy? Velthar asked slowly. We're preparing to defend this galaxy if necessary, Chen Wei corrected. That's why we've built such strong defenses. We didn't expect to need them against our neighbors. While the Galactic Council debated humanity's place in the universe, Supreme Commander Thex-Nar was making his own plans. He stood in the deepest vault of the Valorian homeworld, surrounded by ancient artifacts. The Forbidden Archives contained records from civilizations that had existed millions of years before the Valorian Empire. Most of the technology was beyond understanding, but one section of the archives dealt with weapons, and weapons were something Thex-Nar understood very well. He found what he was looking for in a sealed chamber that hadn't been opened in 10,000 years. The records called it the Starbreaker, a weapon created by a species called the Ancients. The technical specifications made Thexnar's blood run cold. The weapon worked by triggering a chain reaction in a star's core, causing it to go supernova billions of years before it naturally would. The explosion would destroy every planet in the system instantly. Can we build this? Thexnar asked his chief scientist, a nervous individual named Plex. Plex studied the ancient schematics with trembling hands. Theoretically, yes. The principles are sound. But sir, this weapon is forbidden under Galactic Council law. Its use would be considered genocide. I don't care about Council law, Thexnar snapped. Can we build it or not? It would take 6 weeks and require resources from every major shipyard in the Empire. Plex looked up from the schematics. Sir, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans defeated us easily in conventional warfare. This weapon might not even work against their technology. Thexnar grabbed Plex by the collar. It will work because they can't shield a star. Their precious shields protect their ships, but can they protect an entire sun? Can they stop a supernova? Own. No one can stop a supernova, Plex admitted. Exactly. We'll target their home system. Earth will burn along with the rest of their solar system. Then we'll see how brave the humans are. The Keen Nar released the scientist. Begin construction immediately. And send messages to all our allies. Tell them, humanity is an existential threat to the galaxy. Tell them, we need every ship they can spare. On Earth, President Victoria Moore was having a similar debate with her military advisors. They met in a secure conference room deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. General Pete Harrison was the first to speak. He was an old soldier who had served in conflicts across human space. Madam President, we need to reveal our full capabilities now. The galaxy needs to know that attacking humanity is suicide. That's exactly what we shouldn't do, countered Fleet Commander Lisa Hayes. She sat at the table, with her hands folded calmly. If we show our full strength, we want my now. Every species in the galaxy will unite against us out of fear. We'll turn potential allies into enemies. Better enemies we can defeat than friends who might stab us in the back, Harrison argued. Victoria listened to both sides. She had been president for only 2 years, and this was her first real crisis. What does the Valorian Empire know about us right now? Lisa pulled up a tactical report. They know our training vessels are stronger than their warships. They know our shields are nearly impenetrable. They probably suspect we have more ships than we've admitted, but they don't know the full extent of our capabilities. And if they did know, they'd either surrender immediately or do something desperate. Lisa highlighted several items in the report. Our intelligence suggests the Valorians are accessing ancient weapons archives. We believe they're looking for something that can counter our technological advantage. Harrison leaned forward. What kind of ancient weapons? Oh. The kind that the ancients left behind when they disappeared 2 million years ago. Planet killers, starbreakers, weapons that don't rely on conventional technology. Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. Can we defend against those? Some of them. Not all of them. Lisa met the president's eyes. Madam President, this is why we need to end this conflict quickly and decisively, not with overwhelming force, but with overwhelming competence. We need to show the galaxy that humanity is too useful as an ally and too dangerous as an enemy. How do we do that? We let them bring their full fleet. Every ship they can gather. We disable them all, without destroying them if possible. Then we offer generous peace terms. Lisa expanded the tactical display to show the entire region of space between Earth and Valorian territory. We also position stealth ships throughout Valorian space. We show them that we could have struck their homeworld at any time but chose not to. Harrison shook his head. That's a huge risk. If something goes wrong, if they manage to damage even one of our core systems, we'll look weak. Nothing will go wrong, Lisa said confidently. I've reviewed the specifications of every weapon the Valorians have access to, including the ancient ones. None of them can penetrate our defensive grid around Earth. Victoria made her decision. All right. We do it your way, Commander. But I want you personally overseeing the operation. And I want a backup plan in case something does go wrong. Maybe none. Yes, Madam President. Also, contact Ambassador Wei. Tell her she can reveal that we're open to a defensive alliance with any species willing to join. Make it clear, we're not seeking control or dominance. We want cooperation. Lisa nodded. That will help. If the other species see us as potential partners, rather than potential conquerors, they'll be less likely to side with the Valorians. The meeting adjourned, and Victoria was left alone with her thoughts. She looked out at the ocean, visible through the thick, transparent walls of the conference room. Earth had been at peace for centuries. Now they were facing a war that could reshape the entire galaxy. She hoped Lisa's plan would work. Because the alternative was revealing humanity's full military might. And Victoria knew that would make humanity's peaceful future impossible. Commander Jake Phillips received his orders 3 days later. He was in his quarters on Luna Base when the message came through. Commander Phillips, you are hereby assigned to Operation Steady Hand. Assemble 500 ships from the active fleet. You will take command of Earth's defense during the anticipated Valorian assault. Jake read the orders twice. 500 ships. That was a tiny fraction of what humanity could deploy. But it was still more than the training vessels Jack Bennett had used. His executive officer, Commander Rachel Stone, arrived at his quarters within minutes. Just now, Jake pulled up the list of available ships. They're giving us actual warships this time. No more training vessels. About time, Rachel said. The Valorians are mobilizing their entire empire. Intelligence reports suggest they're building some kind of superweapon too. A starbreaker, Jake said quietly. I've read about them. The ancients used them to destroy enemy home systems. Rachel's face went pale. Can we stop it? The grid around Earth can stop anything. But it means they're desperate. Desperate enemies do unpredictable things. Jake began selecting ships from the roster. We need to end this war completely. No second chances. No opportunities for escalation. How do we do that? Jake smiled grimly. We show them what humanity is really capable of. Not all of it. Just enough to make them realize that continuing this war is pointless. He sent his ship selections to Fleet Command and began planning the defense of Earth. This would be the largest military operation humanity had conducted in over a century. And if everything went according to plan, it would also be the last war humanity would need to fight for a long time. In space, the Valorian fleet was gathering. Ships from 40 allied species joined them. The combined armada numbered 70,000 warships. It was the largest fleet assembled in galactic history, and all of them were heading toward Earth. The combined fleet of 70,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They appeared in perfect formation, a wall of ships stretching across millions of kilometers of space. Supreme Commander Thexnar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. Displays showed the positions of every ship under his command. Valorian vessels formed the core of the fleet, but they were surrounded by warships from 40 allied species. Every major military power in the region had sent forces to join the assault. All ships report ready for combat, his tactical officer announced. Thexnar nodded with satisfaction. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Humanity would finally learn that numbers and technology couldn't overcome the combined might of the galaxy's great empires. Begin moving the Starbreaker into position, he ordered. The weapon was massive, larger than most space stations. It had taken 6 weeks to build and required a dozen dreadnoughts just to tow it. But it was finally ready. The ancient weapon would tear apart Earth's sun and destroy humanity's homeworld in a blast of stellar fire. Sir, We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it on screen. Commander Jake Phillips appeared on the display. He was a middle-aged human, with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform, without excessive decoration. Supreme Commander Thexnar. I'm Commander Jake Phillips of the Earth Defense Fleet. I'm asking you to power down your weapons and withdraw from this system. Thexnar laughed. You dare make demands? We have 70,000 warships. You have a handful of defenders hiding behind your planet. We have 500 ships positioned throughout the system, Jake corrected. But the number doesn't really matter. Sir, you've already lost one fleet to our forces. Do you really want to lose another? Your training vessels destroyed ships commanded by incompetent fools, Thexnar sneered. This time, you face the might of 40 civilizations united. This time, you face a weapon that can destroy stars. Jake's expression didn't change. I can see your Starbreaker on my tactical display. It's an impressive piece of ancient technology. But sir, it won't work against our defensive grid. We shall see. Thexnar gestured to his weapons officer. Charge the Starbreaker. Target Sol. The ancient weapon began to glow with accumulated energy. Power flowed into its core from the surrounding dreadnoughts. The energy readings were enormous, enough to trigger a chain reaction in any normal star. Jake sighed on the screen. Sir, I really wish you wouldn't do that. But if you insist, go ahead and fire. Thexnar was surprised by the response. He had expected threats or desperate negotiations. Instead, the human commander seemed almost bored. You think your shields can stop this weapon? Thexnar demanded. I know they can. But don't take my word for it. Fire your weapon and see what happens. Thexnar felt a surge of doubt. The human's confidence was unsettling. But he had come too far to back down now. Thexnar, my nom now. Fire. The Starbreaker released its accumulated energy in a focused beam directed at Earth's sun. The beam crossed the solar system in seconds. It should have penetrated the sun's corona and triggered a catastrophic reaction in the core. Instead, it simply stopped. The energy dissipated against an invisible barrier that surrounded the entire solar system. For a moment, the barrier became visible, a faint shimmer of force that contained the sun and all its planets. What? Thexnar stared at his screens in disbelief. That's impossible. On the human command ship, Commander Phillips shook his head. I tried to warn you. Our defensive grid has been active around Sol for 300 years. It's designed to stop threats from outside the galaxy. Your weapon, while powerful by local standards, doesn't even stress it. Then we'll destroy you with conventional weapons. Chexnar shouted. All ships, engage the human fleet. Show them the power of our united forces. 70,000 warships opened fire simultaneously. The combined firepower could have sterilized a planet. Energy beams, plasma weapons, and missiles filled space around the human vessels. The 500 human ships absorbed the attack without visible strain. Their shields flickered briefly as they dissipated the incoming energy, then returned to their normal state. Jake checked his tactical display. Shields, holding at 98% across the fleet. No damage to any vessels. He opened a channel to his captains. All ships, activate gravitic lock. Let's end this quickly. Commander Rachel Stone, serving as Jake's executive officer, pressed a series of commands on her console. Around Earth's solar system, 500 human ships activated a technology that the Valorian Empire didn't even know was possible. Gravity manipulation had been a theoretical field of study for most species. Humanity had turned it into practical engineering 2 centuries ago. The 70,000 enemy ships suddenly found themselves frozen in space. They couldn't move, couldn't turn, couldn't even activate their faster-than-light drives. They were held in place by precisely controlled gravitational fields generated by the human fleet. What's happening? Thexnar demanded. His ship's engines were running at full power but producing no movement. Why can't we move? Why? His science officer checked the readings with shaking hands. "Sir, they're using gravitational manipulation. Each of our ships is being held by a localized gravity field. It's technology we thought was impossible." Jake's voice came over the open channel. "All Valorian and Allied vessels, you are now under Earth Defense Fleet control. Do not attempt to self-destruct or damage your ships. Your weapons systems have been disabled. Your reactor controls are temporarily locked." "This is impossible," Thexnar screamed. "You can't control 70,000 ships at once." "Actually, we can. Our computational systems are quite advanced." Jake's tone remained calm and professional. "Supreme Commander, this war is over. Your fleet is intact. Your crews are unharmed. But you no longer have the ability to threaten humanity or any other species." Throughout the enemy fleet, panic spread. Captains tried to override their locked systems. Engineers attempted to bypass the human controls. Nothing worked. Humanity's cyber warfare capabilities were as advanced as their shields and weapons. "Sir, we're receiving reports from our stealth teams," Rachel said quietly. Jake nodded. "Put them on screen." The main display changed to show multiple views from different locations. Each view showed a human ship appearing in orbit around a different planet. Valorian military bases, shipyards, and command centers were all surrounded by human vessels that had somehow bypassed every defense. Thexnar recognized one of the views. It was his own homeworld. A human destroyer was in low orbit, directly above the capital city. "How?" he whispered. "How did you get past our defenses?" "We've had stealth ships positioned throughout Valorian space for weeks," Jake explained. "We could have struck at any time. We could have disabled your entire military infrastructure before you ever launched this attack. We chose not to, because we're not interested in conquest or domination." Another view appeared on the screen. This one showed a human frigate hovering above Thexnar's personal command bunker. The ship's weapons were powered but not targeting anything. Jake's voice continued. "Supreme Commander, you're watching this broadcast from your bunker under the Capitol. That frigate above you has been there for 3 days. We've known your location this entire time. We could have ended this war by capturing you personally. We chose to let you come here instead." So, Thexnar felt his legs give out. He collapsed into his command chair, finally understanding the full scope of humanity's advantage. They hadn't just won the battle. They had controlled the entire war from the beginning. "What do you want?" Thexnar asked quietly. "We want peace," Jake said simply. "In 6 hours, we'll begin releasing your ships, one at a time. Each will be escorted to the edge of this solar system by one of our automated drones. You'll be allowed to return home safely. All we ask is that you don't come back. That's all? No tribute? No territorial concessions? No executions? We don't want your territory, and we don't kill prisoners." Jake's expression softened slightly. "Supreme Commander, humanity has made many mistakes in our history. We've fought terrible wars. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We learned from those experiences. One of the things we learned is that peace is always better than victory." Rachel began the process of releasing the captured ships. True to Jake's word, they were released in small groups and escorted to safe distances. Each ship was scanned to ensure no weapons remained active, then allowed to depart. The process took 6 hours. During that time, none of the enemy crews were harmed. Human engineering teams even repaired minor damage to some vessels that had been struck during the initial weapons exchange. Thexnar watched numbly as his great fleet was dismantled and sent home like children being dismissed from school. It was the most humiliating defeat in Valorian history. And yet, it could have been so much worse. The Starbreaker was the last thing dealt with. Human engineers carefully dismantled the ancient weapon, storing its components for study. The technology was too dangerous to be left intact. "We'll keep these components secure," Jake told Thexnar. "The Council may want to study them eventually, but they won't be used as weapons again." Finally, only the eternal glory remained, held in place by the gravitational fields. Jake opened a private channel to Thexnar. Supreme Commander, I'm going to release your ship now. You're free to return home, but I need you to understand something first. What? Thexnar asked bitterly. This wasn't a demonstration of humanity's full military capability. This was us, being careful and restrained. If we had used our actual warships and our full technology, this engagement would have lasted seconds, not hours. Jake leaned closer to the camera. You mobilized 40 civilizations to attack us. We sent 500 ships and barely had to try. Do you understand what that means? Thexnar nodded slowly. It means we never had a chance. It means the galaxy has been thinking too small. There are threats out there that make our conflicts look like children arguing over toys. Humanity has been preparing for those threats. We'd rather have allies helping us prepare than enemies forcing us to waste resources on internal conflicts. The gravitational field around the eternal glory released. Thexnar's ship was free to move again. Go home, Jake said. Take care of your people. And if you ever need help defending against real threats, contact us. We'll be there. The channel closed. Thexnar sat in his command chair for a long moment, then gave the order to return to Valorian space. On Earth, President Victoria Moore received the report of the battle's conclusion. 0 human casualties, 0 enemy casualties, 70,000 ships disabled and released unharmed. Complete tactical victory with minimal force used. She sent a simple message to Commander Phillips. Well done. Then she began drafting her address to the Galactic Council. It was time to start building the alliance that humanity would need for the real threats still to come. In the darkness beyond the galaxy's rim, ancient sensors detected the unusual energy signatures from the battle. Automated systems that had been dormant for millions of years began powering up. Something was waking up, and it was interested in what had just happened near Earth. The peace treaty was signed on Concordia, the neutral world where the Galactic Council met. Ambassador Chen Wei arrived 2 weeks after the battle, accompanied by Commander Jake Phillips. They walked together through the Grand Hall, toward the council chamber. Nervous? Jake asked quietly. Terrified, Chen Wei admitted. We just proved we could conquer the galaxy if we wanted to. Now we have to convince everyone that we don't want to. You'll do fine. Just tell them the truth. The council chamber was packed. Every species in the local region had sent representatives. Some were there out of curiosity. Others were there out of fear. All of them wanted to understand what humanity really was. Supreme Commander Thexnar was already present, though he no longer held his military title. The Valorian government had removed him from power and replaced him with a civilian administration. He sat in a corner, looking smaller and older than he had during the war. Council Chairman Velthar called the meeting to order. We are here to formalize the peace treaty between humanity and the Valorian Empire. Ambassador Wei, please present your terms. Chen Wei stood and activated her display. The terms are simple. The Valorian Empire will agree not to attack human territory or colonies. In return, humanity will not attack Valorian territory or interfere in their internal affairs. We propose open trade and cultural exchange. But these are optional. Krell, the large-scaled ambassador, interrupted. That's all? No reparations? No territorial concessions? That's all, Chen Wei confirmed. Why? The question came from a small insectoid ambassador. You won. You could demand anything. Chen Wei looked around the chamber. Because we don't want anything. We never wanted this war. We just want to be left alone, to develop our civilization in peace. But you have the power to rule the galaxy, another ambassador protested. Why wouldn't you use it? Because we've learned that ruling others never ends well. Chen Wei pulled up historical records from Earth's past. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting wars over territory and resources. We built empires and watched them collapse. We conquered and were conquered. We made every mistake a species can make. The displays showed images from human history. Ancient battles, world wars, nuclear weapons, environmental destruction. The alien representatives watched in silence, We nearly destroyed ourselves 3 times, Chen Wei continued. The last time was 800 years ago. We were on the brink of extinction. That's when we finally learned. Power doesn't bring security. Cooperation does. Progress doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from improving yourself. Jake stood up beside her. We built our military because we found evidence of threats from outside this galaxy. Ancient civilizations that went silent. Weapons left behind that could destroy solar systems. We realized that the real danger wasn't from our neighbors in this galaxy. It was from whatever made those ancient civilizations disappear. The chamber erupted with shocked voices. The idea of external threats was something most species had never considered. Velthar raised his hand for silence. You have evidence of these threats? Yes. Jake activated a new display. It showed recordings of deep space sensors detecting unusual signals. We've been monitoring these for 200 years. There are patterns in the void between galaxies, something artificial, something vast. We don't know what it is yet, but we know it's out there. And you built your entire military to defend against this unknown threat? Krell asked. We built our military to defend this galaxy, Jake corrected. Not just humanity. All of us. Because whatever is out there, it won't care about our borders or our politics. It will see the Milky Way as a target, and will either face it together or fall separately. Chen Wei stepped forward again. That's why we're proposing more than just a peace treaty. We're proposing a defensive alliance. Any species that wants to join can share in our defensive technology. We'll help upgrade your shields, your weapons, your detection systems. In return, we ask that you help us monitor the galaxy's borders and share any unusual data you detect. You'd give us your technology? An ambassador asked suspiciously. For free? Not for free. In exchange for cooperation and shared intelligence. Chen Wei smiled. We're not saints. We want something in return. But we're not asking for control or submission. We're asking for partnership. Thexnar stood up slowly. All eyes turned to him. The disgraced commander looked at Chen Wei with an expression that was hard to read. Ambassador Wei, I have a question. Go ahead. Why didn't you destroy us? When we brought the Starbreaker to your system, you could have eliminated my entire fleet in seconds. Why did you show restraint? Chen Wei met his gaze. Because every life has value. Your crews were following orders. Your allied species were defending what they thought was a legitimate cause. Destroying them wouldn't have made humanity safer. It would have just created more enemies and more grief. But we threatened your homeworld. Yes. And we stopped you without killing anyone. That's the point, Commander. Strength isn't about how much you can destroy. It's about having the power to destroy and choosing not to. That's what separates civilization from barbarism. Thexnar sat down slowly, nodding. The Valorian representative, a civilian diplomat named Vexal, stood up. On behalf of the Valorian Empire, we accept the peace terms. We also request to join the defensive alliance that Ambassador Wei has proposed. Over the next hour, 37 other species added their names to the alliance. Some were motivated by fear of humanity. Others were genuinely interested in defending against external threats. A few were simply curious about human technology, but all of them agreed that cooperation was better than conflict. The treaty was formally signed. Chen Wei and Vexal pressed their hands to the ceremonial document, creating permanent records of their agreement. The Galactic Council declared the war officially over. After the ceremony, Jake found Thexnar standing alone on a balcony overlooking Concordia's capital city. Commander, Jake said quietly. I'm not a commander anymore, Thexnar replied. I'm just a civilian now. A failed one. You're not a failure. You did what you thought was necessary to protect your people. I nearly got millions killed because I was too arrogant to understand what I was facing. Thexnar looked at Jake. When your ships appeared above our homeworld, I finally understood. You weren't bluffing. You weren't exaggerating. You really could have destroyed us at any moment. But we didn't. Why? Give me the real reason. Not the diplomatic answer. Jake thought about it. Because we remember what it was like to be where you are. 800 years ago, humanity made first contact with an automated defense system left behind by an ancient civilization. It was powerful beyond our understanding. It destroyed 3 of our colonies before we figured out how to communicate with it and shut it down. What happened? We learned that the universe is bigger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. We learned that our petty conflicts over territory and resources were meaningless compared to the real threats out there. And we learned that we'd rather have allies than enemies when those threats arrive. Dexnar nodded slowly. What happens now? Now you go home. You rebuild. You focus on making your civilization better instead of bigger. Jake turned to face the former commander. And when something comes from outside the galaxy, you'll be ready to stand with us and face it together. 3 months later, Lieutenant Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of a new ship. The Horizon Runner had been retired after the first battle, and she had been promoted to captain of a much larger vessel. But this ship was different. The crew wasn't entirely human. Her tactical officer was a young Valorian named Kextar. Her chief engineer was a Kraxi. Her medical officer was from a species that humanity had barely heard of before the war. They were the first mixed-species military crew in galactic history. Their mission was to investigate one of the silent zones that Jake had mentioned, a region of space where an advanced civilization had suddenly gone dark 10,000 years ago. All stations report ready, Kextar announced. The young Valorian had been part of the fleet that attacked Earth. Now he served alongside humans, learning their technology and sharing his own knowledge. Take us in, Kate ordered. The ship moved deeper into the silent zone. Sensors detected debris fields from ancient battles, massive structures that might have been space stations or weapons platforms, signs of a civilization that had reached incredible heights before falling. Captain, I'm detecting a signal, her communications officer reported. It's weak, but artificial. Coming from the center of the zone. Can you decode it? Working on it. It's an old format, but the computer is making progress. Kate watched as the translation appeared on her screen. The message was simple and chilling. They came from outside. They cannot be stopped. Only delayed. Warn others. Prepare. The message was 10,000 years old. Whatever had destroyed this civilization might still be out there. Send this data to Earth immediately, Kate ordered. Priority 1. On Earth, Admiral Kyle Morrison received the transmission. He forwarded it to Fleet Commander Lisa Hayes, who called an emergency meeting with President Victoria Moore. They studied the message in the secure conference room beneath the Pacific Ocean. So it's real, Victoria said quietly. There really is something out there. Yes, Lisa confirmed. And according to this message, it's not just dangerous. It's unstoppable. Nothing is unstoppable, Kyle said. Just very difficult to stop. Victoria looked at the message again. 10,000 years ago, an advanced civilization had fallen to something from outside the galaxy. Now, humanity was preparing to face the same threat. How long do we have? Unknown, Lisa admitted. Could be decades. Could be centuries. Could be tomorrow. Then we need to accelerate the alliance. We need every species working together. Victoria stood up. Contact Ambassador Wei. Tell her to push for full military integration. We need a unified defense force. Not just a loose alliance. That will take time, Kyle warned. Many species don't trust each other enough for that level of cooperation. Then we make them trust each other. We show them that it's the only way to survive. Victoria walked to the window overlooking the ocean. Humanity spent too long fighting itself. We're not going to let the galaxy make the same mistake. Far beyond the galactic rim, in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred. Sensors that had been dormant for millions of years detected the increased activity in the Milky Way. The galaxy was waking up. Civilizations were cooperating. Technology was advancing rapidly. This was the pattern that had been detected before. This was what triggered the response. Deep in the void, massive structures began to move. They were larger than planets, older than most stars. They had one purpose, and they had been fulfilling that purpose for billions of years. They moved slowly but with absolute certainty. Their destination was the Milky Way. Their mission was the same, as always: harvest. On Earth, people went about their daily lives unaware of the threat gathering in the darkness. Children played in parks. Scientists worked in laboratories. Artists created beautiful things. Humanity continued to grow and develop, building a civilization worth defending. And in orbit around Earth, new ships were being built. Not just human ships, but vessels that incorporated the best technology from 40 different species. The defensive alliance was becoming real, transforming from a political agreement into an actual military force. Captain Jack Bennett stood in the construction bay watching a new battle carrier take shape. It was twice the size of anything humanity had built before. Designed to carry crews from multiple species and operate for years without resupply. "It's beautiful," Lieutenant Ben Carter said beside him. "It's necessary," Jack corrected. "We've had peace in this region for 3 months. But peace only lasts if you're prepared to defend it. Do you think the external threat is real?" "I know it is. I've seen the data Kate's team sent back. Something destroyed that civilization, and it might be coming here. Are we ready?" Jack thought about the question. Humanity had built incredible defenses. They had formed alliances across the galaxy. They had shared technology and knowledge freely. They had done everything they could think of to prepare. "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But we're more ready than we've ever been. And we're not facing it alone." He looked out at the construction bay where ships from 40 species were being built side by side. Valorian engineers worked alongside human technicians. Craxi scientists shared lab space with insectoid researchers. Former enemies had become partners in a common cause. Whatever was coming from the darkness, they would face it together. And humanity, for all their power and technology, finally understood that their greatest strength wasn't their shields or their weapons. It was their ability to turn enemies into allies and fear into hope. The war was over. But the real challenge was just beginning. In the training academies across human space, new recruits studied not just tactics and technology, but diplomacy and cooperation. The next generation of humanity would grow up knowing that strength came from unity, not domination. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan sent regular reports from the Silent Zone. Each one revealed more about the ancient civilization that had fallen. Each one provided more clues about what they had faced. And with each report, the defensive alliance grew stronger, smarter, and more prepared for whatever was coming. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest or force, but through choice and cooperation. Species that had spent millennia fighting over territory were now working together to defend their shared home. It wasn't perfect. There were still disputes and disagreements. Old prejudices didn't disappear overnight. But progress was being made. And that was what mattered. President Victoria Moore gave a speech that was broadcast across the entire galaxy. She spoke not as the leader of humanity, but as a representative of the Alliance. "We stand at a turning point in galactic history. For the first time, multiple species are working together, not out of fear or obligation, but out of understanding. We have learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. And we have learned that the universe is vast and dangerous, but not as dangerous as our own divisions. Whatever comes from the darkness, we will face it together, not as humans, or Valorians, or Craxi, or any single species. We will face it as the people of the Milky Way, united in purpose and in hope. This is our galaxy, and we will defend it." The speech was heard by billions across the galaxy. And in the darkness beyond, ancient sensors recorded it and transmitted the data to even more ancient minds. The harvest was coming, but this time, the galaxy was ready to fight back.